Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. ModzvilleUSA here, and today we're going to be doing the RGH3 mod on an Xbox 360 Trinity motherboard. These are early slim S model revisions, so 2010 through I believe maybe somewhere in 2012 is when they switched to Corona. I forget exactly. This is a 2011 console right here, mid 2011. So yeah, if you've RGH'd any 360s before, you should be right at home here. This is even more straightforward than previous ones. Some of the solder work is going to prove to be more challenging than the points on, say, RGH2, but totally doable, perfectly fine, and you don't need much. So right here I have a 3D printed shell, and inside of this is an X360 flasher. This is my flasher of choice currently, but there are plenty of options. You can have a JR programmer, Nandex. Those are very cloned and widely available. X-Flasher 360 is what I got. I don't think these are very obtainable anymore, but maybe worth looking into. And then the cheapest, newest option is a new open source project using a Raspberry Pi Pico. I will have that linked below. I haven't looked into it, but I got this pack of Pi Picos for like 10 bucks on Amazon. You're going to need wire, soldering iron, some soldering skills, some flux, all the normal shit, and 3K ohm resistor for the Trinity. Now different revisions require different values for resistors, but the Trinities, you're going to use a 3K, just one resistor, and you're also going to want some heat shrink tubing, or just electrical tape if you want to slop it up, something to insulate that resistor. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I have torn the Trinity down to the motherboard, removed the heatsink. I will leave you to your own devices there. Hope you can figure that out. Watch a teardown video if you need be, and come on back. There are plenty of those out there already. So the first thing we're going to want to do is solder this bad boy up. And if you haven't already, you might as well go down and get all the needed software. So I'll have it linked below. JRunner is all we need for a Trinity. So JRunner with extras, latest version, you're good to go. Okay, so this is the diagram for wiring up your programmer of choice. So this is the one we are going to follow. Pause it here if you want to just wire it up. For me, this is what I'm going to do. Let's see, where's my flux? There she is. So I really like this. It's a little tough to read now. This is Amtech NC 558, I believe. Soldering on easy mode. If you've got this stuff, it is delightful. It's no clean. It's very sticky stuff. Very you know, it's not the cleanest to just leave in there. So you're gonna want to clean it, but it is a nice situation where, you know, if you don't clean it, you don't need to worry about it being conductive down the line. You miss a little bit here and there. So you can hit it beforehand with a fiberglass pen. I'm coming in here. What do I have on? I've got my J tip. I don't like that. I'm going to use a T12 D16 tip here. Now excuse if the camera goes out of focus a little bit. I've been struggling with being focused quite a bit lately. I keep cleaning the lens So the autofocus just keeps going crazy, and it also doesn't appear to like my flux that much. The shininess kind of freaks it out. Okay. So yeah, fiberglass pen will help that along, but it's totally not mandatory. As you saw, it's quite easy to get a joint. Now what I like to do, shout out Weekend Modder, learned this, got this strap from him, one of his videos years ago, is what's going on here is the wire is soldered to a resistor leg, and then that is insulated with either heat shrink tubing or yeah, that's heat shrink tubing. So basically, if you're going to be doing a bunch of installs here, you've got stranded wire is what you're working with. So after 1, 2, whatever installs, that's just going to get chewed up and awful to work with. So you really do want to solder the wires of your programmer to some resistor legs, something to take the time to make it clean if you're going to use it multiple times, because yeah, it's if you just use the bare wire, it gets really shitty really quick. Okay, so we're going brown, going to Brown Town. Alright, programmer is wired up. Joint seems sturdy. Now, this can be a mess for now, it doesn't matter. As long as you don't have any shorts, you're good. This is temporary. We're not, this isn't for show. This isn't staying in the console. We're simply wiring it up to get a dump of our NAND, modify that NAND, and flash it back. That's pretty much the gist here. So, you know, you don't need to worry about this looking aesthetically pleasing, because it's not going to be there by the end of the install. But anyways, now that we have that done, we're going to grab our power supply for the console. We're going to plug it in, make sure we get an orange light. We're not going to turn the console on. That is a big no-no. We're not turning it on. We're just plugging in the power, and then we're hooking up our programmer to the PC. This one uses micro, or not micro, but USB mini. So yeah, plug in the power, hook this up to your computer, and boot up JRunner. Okay, we got JRunner open. Make sure everything's up to date. As you can see, I am up to date, so we are good to go. So yeah, with your 360 plugged into power, your NAND reader of choice hooked up to your PC, you should see the icon for whatever you're using as a flasher. Make sure it's set to NAND reads 2. Click read. Alright, once it's done reading your NANDs, you should see NANDs are the same. If the NANDs for whatever reason are not the same, you're going to want to check your wiring, unplug everything, redo your wires, and try again. But in my experience, if it actually reads it, then I don't believe I've ever ran into an issue where they weren't the same. But if you do, then yeah, you're gonna wanna, something's going on with your wiring. Once you're at this point, what we're gonna do is click RGH3 here in JRunner. We'll automatically choose MHZ27. And what we're gonna do is click Create ECC. And we're going to write ECC. That's it. Now unplug the power, unplug your programmer. It's time to wire up the RGH3 wiring on our Trinity motherboard. Okay, so here's the diagram that we want for our RGH3. I want to be using 30 AWG. I would recommend you do the same. Any thicker gauge than that, you might have problems because many of these points are significantly more brittle than they appear. So just be wary of that. This is not a, you know, you don't want to rip pads or anything of that nature. Treat many of these joints delicately, especially this one and this one are going to be, you know, fairly brittle points. So 30 AWG, you should be fine. Just don't go tugging on anything. Okay, our first joint here is going to be one that's quite easy to locate. This is the CPU reset line. You probably saw it over here before if you've ever done an RGH. It's going to be, with this orientation, it's going to be in the bottom row, and then the second one from the top here. So excuse it if my well, here, I'm going to tin it up first. I'm going to have to do this left-handed and looking through the viewfinder for the sake of the video. The big thing to note here is to keep your lead short. You don't want it touching these other joints because it is routing this way over these other pads here. So you just want to be certain that this lead isn't touching any of the pads behind it. But yeah, that's a very delightful, shiny, beautiful solder joint there. Up, we're gonna go to swing around. It's a little blurry here for the diagram, but we're looking for R319 or 0, looks like, and then there's 2 pads above it. And we'll solder to that top pad. So let's find that on the main board here. There she is. R3, R19, this pad right here. Okay, got it nice and routed, just like this. You want to make sure you're not going straight and taut, because you will go right over that heatsink hole, and you don't want that. That's going to be a problem. Take my flush cuts. Now if you feel more comfortable giving yourself like a little bit more wiggle room with your wire, that's perfectly fine. Just don't overdo it. Xbox 360 RGH mods are very notorious for being fickle with wire length, so you don't want to have massive wires going on here. Beautiful. Then you can go ahead and use some curved tweezers to help you out here. Just come in with my hands for now. Definitely not mandatory. Okay. It's on there. I think that joint can be a little bit better, so I'm going to hold it down. Excuse my dirty fingernails. I'm coming with my tip flat. Cleaning up that joint, and that is a beautiful joint. I do say so myself. I'll clean everything up with IPA for now. It's one of 2 wires fully connected. So our next step is going to be soldering, getting one of our 3K resistors and soldering a wire to each end. So let's do that. Okay, as you can see, I've got the resistor in a pair of helping hands that I have sitting on my desk. It's not mandatory, but it will make another situation, it'll make your life a little bit easier here. Went ahead and fluxed it, and we are just going to tin it up a little bit. Okay, that could be a bit better. I'm going to add some solder to my iron. Adding some flux here too. It's quite difficult to do. Through the viewfinder here. You really got to hold it there for a moment. The solder does take a cool couple seconds to unmolten itself. Okay. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Okay, give it a nice little wiggle. That's on there good. Now we're going to grab some heat shrink tubing. Alright dudes, take my hot Air Rework Station at 200C. Just going over this real quick. Very nice. Now a lighter is not ideal, but you can probably get away with using one. Just don't go too long because you'll likely desolder your joints there. But that is perfectly good. So let's wire this bad boy up, huh? Okay dudes, so I trimmed the wire down a little bit. Just kind of eyeballed it. I want my resistor somewhere in the middle, so definitely trim it down on one side to make sure you know, that it's not going over and that the resistor is still going to be in line here somewhere. So this is going to that pad right there, just above the 2 in the rectangle. So we're going to tin that up. Very nice. I already have my flux on there. Beautiful joint. Okay, and the next one is going to be a bit of a doozy, so buckle the fuck up, boys and girls. So we're going to sort this out. These shots of champions here. So I'm taking a Exacto knife. You want to make sure the tip of this thing is in relatively decent shape. And we're not going to be using much force at all here. Just kind of lightly scrape. Focus on the area that we're worried about. You don't want to sever any traces. Any of that funny business. And that already looks quite nice to me. If you're having a hard time seeing what's going on with where you scraped, just add some isopropyl alcohol. 99 is ideal, and it will it'll pretty much like decloud the area that you just scraped. Makes it much easier to see what's going on. So pretty confident. Yes. So I may have gone just a little bit overboard there and exposed a bit of the trace above it. Did I? I'll hit it with some alcohol, make sure. Okay, so it does look like I didn't sever that trace there, but it does look like a bit of that trace is exposed and tinned, which is not the end of the world. It just forces me to be quite a bit more precise here, so definitely double check that. And this is how that should naturally route anyway, so it's not a problem. I just got to make sure that I don't bridge this pad with that trace, because these are CPU connections. We don't know what will happen if we cross those lines, but you know, it could be devastating, so be wary of that. It's not the most challenging point ever in the world, but if you're not ambidextrous, then you know, you're at least going to want to do this with the hand you're comfortable with. Now that's pretty good. I'm just going to come in like this, give it a press. Easy. Now I'm going to clean that up and double check that nothing's crossed here. Alright, nice and beautiful, dudes. Nice and beautiful. That's it for the wiring. Now at this point, you're going to want something to keep your wires in place. Some people go hot glue, or you could just go electrical tape. Now we're not, the point of this is not to tape down our solder joints. That's not how this works. This isn't This isn't doing that, but in a way it is reinforcing it in the sense of if something gets snagged, the pressure will not be on the joint itself. We don't want pads getting ripped when we screw everything down. We want to route our wires in a safe orientation, and we do not want said wires to get snagged. Basically, we want to keep them flush on the board how we have them, etc. So just using a little bit of electrical tape. We've got 2 points here to relieve any stress, as those last 2 joints we did are not the most sturdy in the world. So anything higher than or thicker than 38 WG on those will pose a problem for you. And don't solder. There's a reason we soldered the resistor in the middle here, because both of these joints are far too brittle to solder this resistor leg straight to. You want it in the middle, relieve that pressure, and we are done. We are going to reassemble the console and see if it boots into Zell. So let's check it out. So I ended up going with the hot glue route here. I used the wire or the tapes to keep it in place, and then just 1 point on this, and I did a couple on this guy. Just it's a long wire connected to 2 brittle points. Just, you know, it's just for safety for the most part. But yeah, we're good to go. So I'm gonna set this bad boy back up and see once I do that. Okay, gang, so I've got everything hooked up here. I've got obviously the heat sink. It's been reattached, new thermal paste. Using MX4. Got the ring of light. Got power, HDMI. I've also got Ethernet hooked up, as that will help us get our CPU key without having to manually write it down. So just using any screwdriver, whatever, something tiny, a little Allen wrench, and we're just going to come in here, just right here, get a better shot of that. Let's see, we come in here, these pins right here, just going to run these up. Yeah, power's on. Cool. There we go. Just jump it, and it's booting instantly. Very nice. You know what? Let's give it a couple of boot tests here. We'll unplug power. That was instant. 2, 3, instant. More. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this Trinity's booting instantly every time. Very nice. So cool. So wait for Zell to show your IP. I'm gonna punch that into JRunner. I'll see you over there. Okay, so we've got 50.203, clicking get CPU key, and there we go. We got it. So once that's done, we're going to click create XE build image. Very nice. And now at this point, you can either hook your programmer and power back up to your 360 and use the write NAND function if you want to program it that way. Personally, I find it easier to go show working directory and copy this to a flash or a FAT32 formatted flash drive. So that's what I'm going to do. But I like to keep the programmer hooked up just in case we have issues with this. We can fall back to that. Okay, put the flash drive with the update file hooked up. We're going to unplug Ethernet now, because once this is flashed, we don't want to accidentally boot just naked into the dashboard with Ethernet until we get dash launch configured and whatnot. So let's boot her up. Instant. That's very nice. Trinity boot times can be pretty crappy. RGH3 is the way to go. So we're gonna wait till it gets to the end here. Okay, once it says image written shut down now, come in here, unplug it. Okay, powering up with a synced controller. You can sync it in Zell, no problem. And there we go. She's booting up. So if you've gotten to this point, you're booting into the stock dashboard. You're good to go. Oh, just flashed. Guess I got dash launch on my flash card there. Totally fine. Very nice. So it flashed and reset with dash launch. And looks like Ninja Dash. Cool. We'll probably disable that, but we got Ninja on there for what it's worth. And yeah, dudes, that's it. If this all seems too complicated for you, my emails are always open. I've got send-in services on my website, but I'm always a little slacking when it comes to updating those. I don't have one for RGH3 yet, but for US, if you're in the US, I believe it's going to be, I think, 75 plus return shipping. Going right on these, so shoot me an email if you want this done. You can do Trinities, Coronas, and Falcon and Jasper fat models. So that is an option. If you pulled this off yourself, good job. Proud of you. And leave a like if you found this helpful. I will be making a video for each revision of RGH3 that is currently out there. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you guys later. Oh yeah, remove this. Now is the time to remove that and put it back together. All right, smell you later. Bye-bye. Back, I say what to do.